So the longer we remain in the current generation of Nintendo Switch hardware, there is no doubt going to be a lot more discourse and ideas popping up online around what Nintendo's truly planning in terms of new hardware and specifically when we will see it launch. Will it be a hybrid console and stick to the Switch form factor, or will it actually go entirely to something different? I am more in the camp that it will be a traditional successor to the Switch, probably something like Nintendo Switch 2, although we don't know the name of it clearly. But in today's video, we do have to go through some very interesting updates around the hardware and the likelihood that it is potentially far closer and further along in the production process when it comes to the chip that will be running this thing, as there's some brand new discoveries tied to the actual SoC that is likely to be powering the true next generation Nintendo Switch update. And we need to break down all the exact details and discuss exactly what this means when it comes to where us Switch fans should be setting our expectations for the new Nintendo console right now. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. Now, as I mentioned, guys, today we are discussing once again the internet's favorite topic, which is what is Nintendo planning with their next iteration of what's next when it comes to the successor for the Nintendo Switch. We know that the Nintendo Switch has been vastly successful for this company, and they clearly are taking the next steps very seriously, as they don't want to have another repeat situation like the Wii to Wii U, where they actually had a console that sold over 100 million units with the Wii, had a huge install base, then they launched their follow-up console and it falls flat on its face and essentially caps out at something like 13 million total unit sales before we did indeed get the official reveal for the Nintendo Switch. We are now in a situation where the user base for the Switch is so strong and dedicated. They are selling more software on this console than they ever have in previous console generations. They have more people bought in and actively playing the console at the same time than ever before, all while generating additional revenue streams with major success services like Nintendo Switch Online. And we also know they are expanding their business in multiple directions with things like the Mario Bros. Movie, kind of creating that new Nintendo Cinematic Universe type of format to reach more mainstream audiences, in addition to expanding theme parks and Universal Studios in both Tokyo and then now here in the US. There's a lot of excitement around Nintendo and where they are headed from here, but the crucial piece of how they will transition off their current hardware into the next generation hardware is the big point of focus online right now, because if you stop and look around for a minute, you may realize we are past the full 6-year point of the Nintendo Switch being sold and available, and that means we're starting the 7th year of sales, and this is already historically just an extremely long console lifecycle for the company, begging the question, when will we find out what is going to happen next? There's a lot of debate and controversy online around one of Nintendo's investor meeting statements where they said, we see the Switch kind of being at the halfway point of its current life cycle, and that was at the 5-year point. So a lot of people jump to the conclusion that we're going to have this Switch for 10 years. Don't expect anything else to be revealed or talked about until then. And the reality is that a life cycle can exist alongside of new, more powerful next generation hardware, as we will definitely see a transition phase where the current model Switch that still doesn't have a price cut, mind you, will likely receive one, and it will be sold as a secondary option alongside of a true next generation successor. Now, the reason this is all back in the news today and we have a massive update to talk about around the conversation has to do with a very interesting find from DocTrey81. Shout out to him, does a lot of good work on YouTube, especially in terms of investigating LinkedIn posts and tying it to certain projects. We previously talked about his channel due to him discovering that there was a new development studio tied to Activision Blizzard located next to Retro Studios and had 5 different Nintendo alumni working there, because that is an interesting talking point around the fact that we have Microsoft actively trying to close the merger and support games like Call of Duty on Nintendo consoles for the next 10 years. And the latest find has to do with the Tegra 239 chip, which is very likely the chip that will be powering Nintendo's next generation hardware. They have seen a ton of success from their Nvidia partnership, and there is no reason to abandon that now. And we've seen different leaked folders and files that show NVM2 tied to this Tegra 239. And short of Nintendo officially confirming it themselves that this is the processor that will be powering the next Switch or whatever is next for new hardware, it is pretty much plain as day at this point that it is likely this chipset. And to first read through and get a quick refresher on the last time this chipset was in the news, let's quickly read through this post over on our gaming leaks and rumors together. Comment by NVIDIA employee confirms existence of Tegra 239, the SoC likely to be used on the Nintendo Switch 2. An NVIDIA employee has confirmed the existence of the Tegra 239 chip, which has been rumored since 2021 as being developed for the next generation Nintendo Switch. His comment, which can be accessed at linux.org, and states, adding support for Tegra 239 SoC, which has 8 cores in a single cluster. Also moving number _ cluster to SoC data to avoid over allocating memory for 4 clusters always. They then point out that this further corroborates a reliable NVIDIA leaker who actually did say that the 239 Orin chip for next generation Switch is indeed going to be the processor used. As of this leak, we know the following details about the next Nintendo Switch console. 239 SoC info from leak above, 8-core CPU likely to be ARM Cortex A78C/A78 inferred from the leak above, Ampere-based GPU that may incorporate some Lovelace features. The second generation Nintendo Switch graphics API contains references to DLSS 2.2 and ray tracing support. Now you can then see a post from Doctray81's video where he highlights that a worker who has completed the work or a project around the T239 is in their work history. What's interesting is that it lists March 2022, which is of course over a full year ago at this point. And so not only does that confirm that the chip is in existence, but also if you deep dive the company behind it, you notice that they are quoted as specializing in providing on-site support for all tape-out critical tasks. And taping out a chipset is what you do at the final stages of that chip being ready for mass production. It does not mean for certain that confirmation that we have the chipset in mass production right now for new Nintendo hardware, but it does likely mean that all of the work is done for this processor and it's all but ready to start being printed in mass production and get the factory lines going with producing the new hardware. You may also remember recently on the channel, we discussed that Chinese manufacturing worker was permabanned from Nintendo, removed from the internet, removed from the job, unfortunately, that he did for Nintendo. And that's likely them getting ready that, well, we have an inside source that's leaking images of our consoles and things that we don't want to get out there. We're about to start ramping up new production for brand new hardware. This person leaked a Switch Lite and various other info, the Splatoon 3 OLED, before it was officially revealed. We have to handle this before the true next generation hardware production line ramps up. And while that's not 100% confirmed that that's the reason and the timeline around that guy being removed, it also does have more smoke to this ongoing fire around Nintendo being closer and closer to revealing their plans for next generation hardware. Now, if the chipset is indeed the T239, it sounds like so far from everything we know about this chipset that it is going to pack a punch in the power department, which is exactly what I think we need as Nintendo Switch gamers. I don't think it's smart for Nintendo to abandon this gold strategy that they've had in the Nintendo Switch generation. Outside of some of the nostalgia that I have for the N64 and GameCube generation of consoles, this is quite honestly the best generation and the best time to be a Nintendo gamer in my personal opinion, just due to the fact that every mainline first-party AAA Nintendo experience can be played docked or in portable mode. You are not having to go out and buy 2 Nintendo consoles to experience all the games they have to offer like in generations past, but rather everything is put on one. We have huge support from various different developers on a third-party perspective, and I think that that only ramps up and is taken to another level if we do get a chipset that is as powerful as this one claims to be. And we are talking about things like docked 4K resolution via DLSS technology and better, more consistent, reliable frame rates across the board. All Nintendo needs to do is pump out a more powerful version of the successful console that they have today, and that is why I am all for the Super Nintendo Switch, Nintendo Switch 2, whatever they want to call it or brand it. I think that the Switch still makes all the sense in the world to continue for their next generation hardware, and it does seem like we are getting closer and closer as there are more hardware leaks, more evidence that this chipset is ready to go and ready for mass production. And I personally just can't wait to finally see when Nintendo will reveal the timeline of when this thing will launch. There is a lot of people on both sides of the fence right now, some saying holiday 2023 is the time, and that's likely when we will see it launch. Even Jeff Grubb saying that what from he has heard that likely late 2023 could be the launch time. And Andy Robinson recently going back to kind of correct his tweet where he suggested that following Tears of the Kingdom, Nintendo had nothing else for 2023, and instead it sounds like it is just going to be a gap from Tears of the Kingdom to the end of 2023, and then we get some big stuff. And we also have Nintendo mysteriously pulling out of E3 this year, not having a traditional presence there, as it just quote unquote doesn't fit into their marketing plans. So could it be 2023? Entirely possible at the holiday season, or do they repeat what they did with the Switch hardware we have today, and it's actually a early March or mid-March launch window in 2024? I can see them doing either one, but we will, at the end of the day, as always, as we always discuss in these videos, have to wait from Nintendo to officially get confirmation on what their plans are, and we will just be having fun on the sidelines, talking and speculating around what may be next from the company. But I really want to hear from you guys at this point in the video, your personal thoughts and opinions around what you want to see next in terms of new next generation hardware. Do you want it to be a Switch 2? Do you want Nintendo to go to something entirely different? Do you think Nintendo will ever go back to having a more portable handheld console, but then also coming out with a dedicated home console that's more powerful on par with what the PS5 and Xbox Series X are running at today? Or do you think that that formula is entirely done? Because I definitely kind of do. I think that Nintendo sticks with the Switch, but definitely share with me which direction you want to see them go and which games you think would make the most sense to launch the new next gen hardware, as clearly it doesn't look like it's coming out in time for Tears of the Kingdom. So Nintendo has to have some big heavy hitters. I think a big Mario game would make a ton of sense, and not to mention we need to have Metroid Prime 4 come out on that hardware either way. But share with me which games you want to see and when you think we will ultimately see Nintendo announce and launch the true successor to the Nintendo Switch. So regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics. Go watch yesterday's video next if you haven't already, which is on screen right now. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.